we've got AI that is now creating, be it briefs, be it medical chronologies, medical summaries, letters, demand letters. It is going and looking at this data set and then creating a new document or creating a response.
This is Hollis Wright Managing Partner Josh Wright, and welcome to the Verdicts In Podcast Season 4. Here, our experienced attorneys break down the hottest legal stories making headlines and connect them to real cases from our firm's files. Each episode dives into current events, landmark verdicts, and trending legal debates, giving you practical insight into how law really works for you and in the real world. With candid conversations, expert commentary, and behind-the-scenes stories from active and past cases, The Verdicts In gives listeners a front-row seat to the intersection of news and personal injury law. Plus, in every episode, you'll pick up valuable legal advice straight from the front lines that can help you in your everyday life. Subscribe to The Verdicts In podcast wherever you get your podcasts and get great legal insight without the legalese. The Verdicts In podcast starts now. Welcome into the Verdicts In podcast. I'm Josh Wright with our partner John Spade talking about AI today. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
So I once heard about a law firm who may have used AI to try and write a brief for themselves, and accidentally, using OpenAI, cited some cases that are no longer good law in Alabama and got themselves into a little hot water. What says you about that?
I say, and I'll say this throughout the podcast today, trust but verify. That was an Alabama law firm, happened up in North Alabama, and they got into, or are still getting into some hot water over, they just relied 100% on the AI, didn't read through, didn't verify the information that they were getting. And so today we're going to talk about kind of some of the general do's and don'ts and how a lawyer can use AI, clients that, we see it in our practice, at least I do. I get responses sometimes from clients that it's very clear that they've gone to a ChatGPT or some kind of public AI to write a response to me, kind of some general do's and don'ts on some things that maybe the general public isn't thinking about when they're conversing now with these platforms. So we did a very good podcast. Mike Eldridge did a very good podcast a while back, I think last season, on AI in general. So this is not going to be breaking down AI. What is AI? This is more kind of a how-to, do's and don'ts. There will be some crossover there. My take on AI is it's not going away. Okay, it's only getting more prevalent. It's been around for a long time. Really, with the generative AI, which is what most people think of ChatGPT, with that kind of coming into the fold and really kind of expanding over this past year or two, it's gotten better and better. It's going to continue to get better. We see all the investments from Alphabet, from Meta, from Tesla, all the NVIDIA, all these industry leaders. AI is not going away. Yeah. And so as a lawyer, we have to be aware that it's something that is coming into the legal field. How do we deal with it? What is our approach to it? What ethical considerations are there? And so I kind of want to unpack some of that today. I saw something and getting ready for this that ChatGPT says that over 800 million people use ChatGPT every week.
I've heard the same thing. And so season 4, show 1, we lead off with this AI. You mentioned that it's not going away. I agree with you 100%. Where do you see this kind of driving into the legal industry? Like, it started originally with maybe people trying to use it to cut some corners. And by the way, this law firm up in North Alabama, they're not the only ones out there. There are plenty of firms that have gotten themselves in trouble, right? And it's a good learning lesson for lawyers like us. But where do you really see, this is kind of an important start to season 4, where do you see this hitting the legal industry? And that will kind of get us from a jumping off perspective related to the show.
Absolutely. So you've got the public ChatGPT AI platforms out there. What we've seen over the past couple of years is much more tailored to the legal community paid platforms that are training their AI on case law, on relevant statutes, on Alabama code, that sort of stuff, and then tailoring to like medical chronologies. Just talking about our practice, and this is going to be geared a little bit more to personal injury, just because that's what we deal with every day. I'm sure there's other platforms that are geared towards transactional type attorneys, that sort of stuff. But there is really, this market is being created for to assist and help the legal industry and gearing and training the AI. Because at the end of the day, you've got to kind of step back, have a 30,000-foot view. Your AI is only as good as the data that it's trained on. And so something that those lawyers up in North Alabama ran into, these AI hallucinations and case law that's not either good case law or was never case law to begin with. It's trained on all the data out there in the internet and all that sort of stuff. It's closing off the system a little bit, and we're seeing that in the legal community, closing off the system, training it on statutes, on codes, the data that you input into the AI and that you give it, be it medical records, accident reports, that sort of stuff. Your AI is only as good as the data that it is based on.
So AI has been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. Let's take some simple examples. When I go to Travelocity 15 years ago and I do a search and I try and find the most efficient flight for the times that I want, that's an AI component.
Yes.
And when I go to Google and I do a Google search, and I've done that for the last 20 years, that Google search is a component of AI. What's changed in AI that has taken it from the traditional search response to where it is today and can be dangerous in the legal industry if not used correctly?
Well, and so now it's that generative AI that I touched on a little while ago. We've got AI that is now creating, be it briefs, be it medical chronologies, medical summaries, letters, demand letters. It is going and looking at this data set and then creating a new document or creating a response. And so it used to just be kind of reactionary. We've got these ChatGPT, for instance, uses a LLM. It's a large language model where you can have a conversation back and forth with the AI, and it is going through all the data that it's been trained on and then spitting back a response. And one thing that's important is I think a lot of lawyers, our first kind of reaction is, kind of put up a wall and say, all right, we're not going to allow this. I'm a lawyer. I'm trained on this. I don't want this computer coming in and taking my job, essentially. I don't think it's gotten to that level. I don't think that it's ever going to truly replace lawyers. But I do think that it does have a place. I think it could be a good starting point, but it's not something that we need to be relying exclusively on. So there's a middle road approach there. Let's not completely turn our backs on it and bury our heads in the sand, but let's also not just completely, check our common sense at the door and our years and years of experience at the door. You can find this middle road.
All right, so let's talk just for a second about, there may be some people listening or some people watching that are saying, all right, well, I don't really understand what is the interface a lawyer uses to get to AI if I wanted to even use it. First, let's talk just about that for a minute. I mean, what is the interface? If you're at your computer and you want to go to ChatGPT, give us an example of something you could do, whether it's a good idea or not, that you could do in the legal space that would allow you to actually use this AI platform.
Sure, and so there's varying levels of the AI. We'll use ChatGPT, for instance, and this really kind of applies not just to lawyers but to the general public. Okay, you open up ChatGPT and you ask it a question. I was hurt on the job. What are my options? Okay, it's going to go and it's going to come back and give you, workers' compensation potential claims. It might give you the elements for, negligence or for premises liability. It's going to give you kind of what we call kind of black letter law. And most times that's pretty accurate, okay? But again, even with that information, you need to trust but verify, okay? And so if you ask it a bad prompt and just have a general question of, hey, I was hurt on the job, it's not going to narrow your results, for instance, for the state of Alabama. As we know, Alabama's got their own laws, Mississippi's got their own laws, Georgia's got their own laws, different statutes, different defenses. And so you've got to be aware of the prompt that you're giving the AI, and then look at the information that's providing. And a lot of times it'll get you part of the way there, but don't just take it at its face value.
Yeah, and by the way, you can actually take it to the next level. And I know there have been some changes. I want to talk about that next in the legal space. But you can take it to the next level and say, draft me a complaint in workers' compensation under Alabama law, and it will draft you a complaint. Now, whether the information is solid, if it's accurate, if there's hallucinations, as you mentioned earlier, that's something that would need to be verified. But you can ask it to do that. And by the way, not just that, there are a lot of different platforms. We talk about ChatGPT, but there's Gemini. I mean, there are a lot of different platforms out there.
Copilot's another one, yeah. And that's something that whether you knew it or not for years, we say AI has been around for a long time. It's been a hot button issue for the past couple of years because it's really kind of been pushed into the spotlight really with this generative AI. But AI has been around forever, and it's been it's been being used in the background whether you knew it or not. Travelocity was a great example. Now what we're seeing. And we've seen recently, and one of the reasons why I want to kind of bring this up, that's talking about it being thrust in the spotlight. We had ChatGPT came out and they changed their terms and conditions recently, and the headline was ChatGPT no longer giving legal or medical advice. And essentially what they did was they changed their terms and conditions to say if it's going to be a tailored advice, you need to consult a professional. You need to consult a doctor. You need to consult a lawyer. And so a lot of, people saw that. And I did initially when I saw the headline come across. I was like, oh, well, that's great for us. That's a good barrier of entry, and that's going to protect us. Really,
we have jobs.
That's right. We
have jobs.
Well, as long as we can take a deposition, as long as we can go into a courtroom, as long as we can advocate for our client and turn facts from one witness to another witness to a summary judgment, we're always going to have jobs. That's one thing that the AI can't do. And so, we saw this headline, though, come out with ChatGPT, and everybody is like, oh, great. Yeah, that's, good. And you need to consult a doctor. You need to consult a lawyer anyways. But really, when you kind of start to peel back what happened, a lot of the kind of commentators in the space are this is really more kind of a CYA for ChatGPT, kind of a way to potentially limit liability, so they're not stepping off into the unauthorized practice of law, because that's where your legal malpractice kind of lives, is kind of in that gray area. So they kind of do a blanket, hey, we're not offering legal advice, but if you ask me a question, if you ask me to draft a complaint, if you ask me how to, drop a bill of sale for a vehicle, it's still going to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I was going to ask is what really has changed? I mean, can someone still use ChatGPT to be able to, or Copilot or whatever, in order to gain some level of legal understanding and knowledge?
They can, and you can ask it. And the thing is, it's a for those that haven't used ChatGPT, what I'd recommend it is try to use it, and I want to talk through kind of some safeguards on some things to think about if you're doing a kind of a legal analysis with a public, AI model like ChatGPT. Use it. It's an ongoing conversation. You can ask it follow-up questions and ask it, what are some potential defenses and that sort of stuff. And it is a back and forth conversation, but one thing to keep in mind, for both lawyers and the general public, the conversations that you're having are not going to be protected by the attorney-client privilege.
And let's do this. First of all, we're in the L. Andrew Hollis mock courtroom. What do you think about the new digs for the podcast?
I like them. Glad that we're putting it to good use. I know we've done a couple of mock trials in here and everything, but I think it's great and fitting for the name too, right?
That's it. All right, so let's step away. But
okay.
When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about some of the do's and don'ts and how clients use it versus how lawyers use generative AI in the legal space. That work?
That sounds good to me.
And before we step away, let's just make sure that it's clear for those that are listening or watching, anywhere you get your podcasts, anywhere you consume your podcast, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify, Alexa, or even on our website, or even Amazon. We've got the podcasts out there. We look forward to providing this service for years to come. We're here in season 4, and we'll be right back.
We hear all the time, hiring an attorney is intimidating and overwhelming. Well, at Hollis Wright, it's not. Trust me when I say our team is here to serve you, not the other way around. Let Hollis Wright tell your comeback story.
The attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show in 2011, my goal was to do what our firm does best: help people answer questions related to real-world legal issues they have in their lives in a way that's not intimidating to talk with a lawyer. If the issue is important to you, it's equally important to us, and we're ready to talk with you at no cost.
Yeah, oftentimes people are confronting various legal issues in their lives that really run the gamut of a lot of different legal practice areas, such as bankruptcy, criminal law, civil law, such as personal injury, divorces, domestic relations. And to be able to have a show once a week that covers those practice areas and answers people's questions in those areas, that's really the main objective of the show.
We use the resources of the many lawyers at our law firm to create a plan that has a lasting impact for each person that calls or texts. And we also give back to the community at the same time. We are here to serve you, the viewer, each week on The Attorneys. Welcome back into the Verdicts In podcast. Josh Wright here with guest John Spade, partner at Hollis Wright. John, when we went off, we were talking a little bit about just kind of AI and how it started to hit the legal industry and the impact of generative AI. Let's talk, if we can, a little bit about kind of what AI, generative AI, can and cannot do in the legal space. That's kind of where we left off.
Sure, absolutely. And this is in the wake of, I guess, ChatGPT kind of changing their terms and conditions. It's still going to be able to give you kind of general principles, okay? It's going to give you the elements of negligence, right? Duty, breach, causation, damages. It's going to give you, what is a medical malpractice claim? Those kind of big black letter type thoughts and theories. It'll give you general procedures. How long do you have to file a lawsuit for personal injury in the state of Alabama? It'll give you that sort of stuff. What it's not going to do, and what you really shouldn't be approaching ChatGPT for, is giving you tailored legal advice about your factual scenario, okay? It's not going to be able to analyze, very factually intensive, fact-specific, case-specific questions and then give you an analysis. All right, and that's something that really you need to go to a lawyer and to a legal professional for, and to understand kind of the limitations. When do I have to file a lawsuit? That's a whole different question of, do I have a viable lawsuit, right? And that second question is not something that's going to be, fit really for a ChatGPT, a public AI, generative AI. It's just not the same as talking to a lawyer, because, as you know, in practicing, law, we are constantly making, these little decisions, whether it be in a deposition, do I ask this question, do I not ask this question? We're constantly assessing pressure points to potentially get a case resolved. That's something that the AI is not being able to engage in.
And in addition to all of that, and I really want to talk about this, the lack of confidentiality involved in AI. And this may sound almost over the top that we would analyze confidentiality, but as generative AI gets to the next level, the reality is it gets more specific. And I can imagine circumstances where a client may be questioning their own lawyer about specific facts related to their case, and their artifact data up on ChatGPT or on the web that it's pulling information from, where you're providing information that's not confidential, that gets out into the main internet, and then other people can pull that down. Do you see that happening? Is that a real potential concern moving forward?
Absolutely. And just remember, you are not, when you're going to these ChatGPT and these public, AI platforms, you are not speaking with the lawyer. There is no attorney-client privilege there. So, uploading medical records, for instance, to a public AI platform is a big no-no. You're not ensuring that on the other end that's not being disseminated out, into the internet and dark web or wherever it goes. Okay, there's no confidentiality there. There's no attorney-client privilege. Don't put your social security number in there. Don't put your date of birth in there. Things that I think most people kind of would say, oh yeah, I would never do that. But you'd be surprised. You start talking back and forth, and it feels like you're talking to a human. It feels like you're talking to
a friend of sorts.
Yeah, a friend, and they, are going to ask follow-up questions. Well, do you want to know about this? Do you want to know about that? Just be aware of kind of what space that you're in. And another thing, and it's not really an issue right now, but might be in the next 5 or 10 years, is your chat history could potentially be discoverable. Right? It's not your conversation with the lawyer. It's not protected by that privilege. It's not protected by a psychotherapist privilege. We're seeing a lot of people, like I said, 800 million people a week are using AI and ChatGPT almost as like a therapist as well, and they're disclosing very personal, information, and they don't know where it's going. They don't know where it's being used on the back end, and so be aware of the fact that this isn't protected. This isn't privileged. This isn't confidential, and don't put any of your personal health information or personal identifying information in there. I think the approach to have to it is it's a good resource. Google's fantastic, okay? Kind of like Google on steroids almost. Know that, it's good for surface level stuff, but as far as, the kind of deep dive and your case-specific stuff, that really needs to happen.
Well, and let's take an example, too. Let's assume, because we can use it as a sword on our side also, let's assume that interrogatory or a request for production goes out from this law firm to someone who's a defendant in a case, asking for their ChatGPT history, and we find in that ChatGPT history or that Google history something like this. What happens if I'm on my cell phone at the time of an accident, but I want to make sure that no one can find that out? And you see that search on there. That can be used as a sword in a case, can it?
For sure, without a doubt. And you hear it a lot more just because it gets more publicity on the criminal side. When you talk about developing mens rea and, did they have the intent to commit the crime, and they go and subpoena their search history and their Google history. The ChatGPT history is going to be, another iteration of that, another step to potentially find additional evidence. And yeah, if you cause an accident, there's a suspicion that you might have been on your cell phone when the collision occurred, and you're asking ChatGPT, how do I wipe my history, my usage history, my data on my phone, that can be used to create that inference, to create that preponderance of the evidence to say, look, he was on his cell phone. Yeah.
All right, so let's step away. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how lawyers, in your assessment, are going to be using this the right way moving forward, and how clients can use it the right way moving forward, because you're right, it's not going anywhere. I want to remind our viewers and our listeners, too, that Hollis Wright is here all week long, every single week. And we're not going away anywhere, just like AI is not going away. You can call us at any time if you've got questions or concerns or issues or need legal advice at 844-LAW-TALK, or you can watch us wherever you get your podcasts and listen to us, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Alexa, Amazon, or even our website. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to help educate you and give you snippets of information and things that can help you in your everyday life. We're going to be back in just a little bit with John Spade from Hollis Wright. We're going to be talking a little bit more about AI. We'll be returning here shortly. I've always heard, surround yourself in life with people that fight for you in rooms you're not in. That's what we do for our clients every single day. Hire a firm ready to advocate for you. Let Hollis Wright tell your comeback story.
Honestly, we don't love all the legal advertising we see, but some firms are simply built different. If you want a firm you can be proud of, one that doesn't stop until we win, well, you found it. Let Hollis Wright tell your comeback story.
Welcome back into the Verdicts In podcast. Josh Wright here with John Spade from Hollis Wright, one of our partners, talking about AI, something that's not going away. And Hollis Wright's not going away either, are we?
Nope, we're here to stay. Been here for, 25 years?
Been a long time, All right, I want to dive into something that I think is important. I want to cover two primary topics, but one is, how can AI actually have a hallucination that is bad information without you even really realizing that it was bad information? How does that even happen? And it's kind of a concern that we all need to be aware of.
Yeah, so you can have, it depends on what your data set is, okay? Always be thinking when you're talking about AI, what is a data set? And we've been talking a lot about ChatGPT, and that's, pulling really from the entire internet. There might be a case out there that was good law 3, 4, 5 years ago, but has been overruled, in the past 3, 4, 5 years.
And someone wrote about it.
And somebody
and said
wrote
it was
an
good law
article
at that
about
time,
it,
but now it's not
or
good
it was
law.
published in the public forum somewhere. And ChatGPT pulls that as good case law, but if you shepherdize it, if you go to Westlaw, go to LexisNexis, it is not good law anymore. And so it's citing it to you as good law, and it's got its cite for this article that was written 5 or 6 years ago. So you look at it and go, oh yeah, that's probably good. And that's really what the trust but verify is to cut out those hallucinations. Know what data set your AI is being trained on. And really, in the legal context, and this is more geared for lawyers, not so much the general public. We talked a lot about ChatGPT. I want to take a minute though and shift kind of. We've got Even Up is one that's out there. There's a lot of different tailored legal AI platforms that are coming out. I think they're going to continue to come out. Lawyers always want that next leg up. They always want to be competitive. We're all very type A. I think that there's going to be additional platforms coming out there. What are some things to look at when you're getting into and assessing those? First is, what are your needs? Are you wanting to use this as a cut through for summarizing medical records? Are you wanting this to do drafting? Those are some things to look at on the front end.
And add some context too. Explain how, unlike ChatGPT, where I just type something into a chat on the internet, and I want to go where you're going, but I want you to unwrap it a little bit to explain it to people that are listening. Even Up, you talked about that as a program. That's a different type of program, a program our firm uses at times. Explain how that's different than simply typing something into ChatGPT, because you talked earlier about garbage in is garbage out, and good information in is good information out, and good result out. How does something like Even Up or some of the other platforms out there that are coming into the legal industry, how are they different than what a traditional ChatGPT search would be?
So you've got more of a closed system versus pulling everything from the internet, and they're training their AI on kind of more legal tasks, okay? Kind of the elements of what a demand letter might be, the elements of what a complaint might be, what discovery responses might be. And you, in assessing which AI platform you want to go to, a consideration that I would say for lawyers is, find out, is it closed? Is it open? Are they HIPAA compliant? Are they, not redisseminating my medical records, my clients' medical records, that sort of stuff, the case-specific and confidential information? Because when you're outside of the ChatGPT, we're talking now about the paid-for private, AI platforms. These are situations where lawyers can upload case-specific information like medical records, death certificates, accident reports, depositions, witness testimony, affidavits, all that sort of stuff, and then talk with an AI and look at strengths and weaknesses and that sort of stuff. And so it's a closed environment. That's something that you need to look at. What are they doing with the information? And then this, unlike ChatGPT, which is trained on the entire internet, is a much more specific and kind of guided, subset. And one thing that, a lot of people kind of run into and errors is, you have this garbage in, garbage out. What are the prompt, or what is the question that you're asking ChatGPT? As lawyers, we're trained to ask very specific questions. Something that these paid for AI platforms do is they have engineers that know and are guided towards, kind of the legal mindset, and they have prompts that are already pre-written and preloaded so that you're getting more specific and better information back out.
Closed system, not open to the internet, based on the documents that you plug in that may be case specific, and in addition to that, HIPAA compliant. Those are systems that can be used constructively the correct way as a lawyer.
Absolutely.
Fair?
Yeah.
And give me just an example of a search. What would you do? Would you plug in a bunch of depositions and ask it to find stuff? What would you do in a system like that?
Yeah, you can upload, say you've got 6, 7 depositions. You can upload those depositions in there, and they will do an analysis, and you can say, find me all the contradictions, throughout these depositions. Find me where they admit that there's every admission of notice. And so you can ask it questions. And the good thing is, a lot of these platforms, like I say, at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is trust but verify. Okay? And these platforms will cite you to something, and you can click on it, and a lot of times it will take you directly to the deposition testimony. So don't just take the AI's word for it, trust it, but verify it, and go look at the actual deposition testimony.
Crystal ball, John Spade, what's the future going to hold in the legal industry related to some of these companies that are coming up that are legal specific? Is it going to help us be more efficient and help our clients long term?
I think so. And the last piece of kind of nugget of information, I would say, if you're going to take the leap into AI, I absolutely don't think it's going away. I think it's going to make us bigger, faster, and stronger. If you're going to take the leap, though, you need to, I would kind of do a test case and kind of do some, playing around on your own. But this is something that needs to be disclosed on the front end, okay, that you're using this potential AI. I don't think it's going away. I think it's only going to be more prevalent, but it's something that does need to be disclosed and need to be analyzed and looked at, and not just done kind of willy-nilly going and Googling a bunch of stuff, okay?
Hollis Wright started this stuff, didn't they?
Yeah.
Was it the young bucks that convinced the old bucks, or the old bucks that convinced the young bucks to do this? As I recall, it was guys like you telling us.
But y'all were receptive to it as well.
Well, good job. AI's not going anywhere, and John Spade's not going anywhere, and Hollis Wright is not going anywhere. We thank you for joining us for Season 4 here on the Verdicts In podcast. We hope if you need help, legal or otherwise, you'll contact us. You can contact us all week long at 844-LAW-TALK or hollis-wright.com. We're always available, and we hope that you will continue to tune in and watch the Law Talk podcast and also the Verdicts In podcast as we move forward throughout the season. We thank you for joining us today.